Hey, nah, bro, y'all ain't never gonna get me on a passport, bro, train. Listen, I get it as a joke on social media. I ain't dating none of y'all girls over here. But to actually get your passport, go to another country, just specifically to find a mate, oh, that's a different kind of pathetic. I get, like, if you work over there or something, right? Or if your people from over there and you got family over there, you get the culture, you know the language or whatever. But you dead got up from the United States of America because you couldn't find one woman to satisfy you from what you want from a woman. You couldn't find uno, so you.
Hello YouTube, it's your boy the Passport Bro Wingman coming at you again with another YouTube video. The title of this video is called Passport Bros Means No Self-Respect. You mean you can find one woman in America to settle down with? Says Plantation Bro. The way I came about this video was I noticed a video by the Plantation Bro that you saw at the beginning of this video, in which he was addressing the Passport Bros, and his pushback was that he couldn't really join the movement or get down with it because he just felt it was pretty pathetic, and he pretty much feels that most of the men who are passport bros or aspiring passport bros or any way, shape, or form have to travel overseas to get dates and so forth are men that, for the most part, were like had problems getting women in the States. There's something wrong with them. They got some type of issue and that kind of thing. And nothing can be further from the truth. As you know, as a lot of guys in the passport movement space, as you know, this is a trope that's been going on for a while, in which they've been saying that a lot of us couldn't get women back to the States, so we wanted something easy, so that's why we went overseas. And that's just not the case. And as he stated, you mean you had to go overseas to get a woman? It's not that we had to; it's that we wanted to. We just saw that there was a vast difference between foreign women and women in the West. And I always talk about, a lot of times people talk about their origin story. So my origin story was, I just remember back, this was back when I had just got fresh out of college. And unfortunately, I had a very, very hard time finding a job. As you know, a lot of jobs, if you don't have experience, they won't really hire you. So while I was looking for a job, I was working at McDonald's. I worked at McDonald's I was there for at least about like a year. So anyway, while I was working at McDonald's, this is in Florida, there were a lot of Ecuadorian and Peruvian women that I was working with. And I just noticed that when I was working with them, I just noticed how they just treated the men with a lot more respect. They were always kind of polite when they spoke to me. They didn't think I was, what's the word? Like, it wasn't this, put it this way. Usually when you see most women in America, you kind of keep your distance because you don't want to get like some type of, you don't want her to accuse you of anything. There's always like this tension there. There's like this ice there. But with them, I didn't really feel that. Everything just happened very naturally. Sometimes they just walk to me, start a conversation. I can start a conversation with them. Very down to earth. That's the way I can put it. Had lots of substance, very down to earth. Another thing was they took care of themselves very, very well. Even though they was working at McDonald's, they came in looking nice. They took care of themselves, their skin, their hair. They talk very politely. They didn't really have a very harsh attitude dealing with men. I never felt this thing where I'm like, they didn't really have the feeling that, you were, they didn't give a feeling that you weren't wanted around. A lot of times whenever there was something like, I guess I would say masculine, when there was a lot of masculine things to do, they always would call me or like some other man. Like, for example, whenever we got a big truck, we had to move a lot of heavy boxes and so forth. They always would come to me and ask me like, hey, can you do this for me? And they'd be very grateful and so forth. There was no thing about I'm a boss babe and I don't need you. Everything just fit perfectly. I don't know. There wasn't any wrestling or struggle about our roles. They just respected that men do certain roles around. Like we did, they had me out sometimes helping with the weeds. Yes, and there was weeds around the McDonald's parking lot, but they had me doing a lot of like stuff that men would do around the house kind of thing. And a lot of the women, they did the, kind of in the house thing, washing the dishes in the back and that kind of thing. So I don't know. I could just see that there was like still like a hierarchy and order in their culture. So it was just very, and I was looking at that versus me coming from, before then I spent a lot of time in Chicago. I spent a lot of time in, a lot of time in Chicago, and just there, I could just tell the difference just growing up in my culture there. women had like what's the word? It was just, I don't know, just very, very like, and it's not all, of course, it's not all of them, but a lot of, like, I can just tell that there's always this struggle there about who is supposed to be running a relationship. And a lot of times, whenever I see a lot of guys, to me, it just felt like they were doing a lot of simping, and the woman was still in control of where we would go on dates. And a lot of times in school, guys would just do a lot of stuff, more so just to impress a lot of women. I just think that a lot of them probably now to look back on it, just probably look at how ridiculous they were and doing a lot of this simping. So that being said, that just sparked a thing in me where I just wanted to, uh, learn more about different cultures and how the women were there. And so one of the girls there, she actually was from Ecuador, and we semi dated. So she actually one time invited me to go with her when she visits her family in Ecuador. So I finally got a chance to go outside of the country, and I was just blown away. I mean, I not only did I like the sights I saw, everyone's friendly. I saw how cheap things was, and I just, I just figured once I did get some money, I was actually going to make that move, and I was going to travel. And I'm sure that most of the guys listening, you have your own origin story, how you got started and got into it. But let me say this: once I got a taste of the foreign women and the way they treated their man, there literally was no going back. It had nothing to do with desperation and all that stuff like that. And let's talk about that. Even the guys that say like there are some let's just go to the extreme. Let's say that a lot of guys who are passive bros, they just say for whatever reason they couldn't get girls, and they there was some issue with them, the reason they, for whatever reason, they was doing something on their end that didn't attract the women. So here's a few things. One, why do you care that these guys are leaving? If they're that detestable that you can't deal with them and there's something wrong with them, you should be happy then that some other women took them off the hands of the women here in the States, and some other women picked them up, and they're fine. They found somewhere where they really fit in and they'd have no issues. I don't understand, like, why is that such a pathetic thing? I mean, at the end of the day, you're gonna go, where you're wanted for the most part. I mean, if I go to a business, let's say I go to a McDonald's or something, like we're talking about McDonald's. I go to McDonald's, people say, "Hey, get out of here. We don't want any black people here," or you don't like your type in town or something like that. I'm not gonna just keep going there. I'm gonna say, okay, well, let me go see what places will accept me, based upon my race, height, or whatever reason the women discriminate against men about. Maybe it could have been you were too short. You weren't handsome enough. Maybe you didn't have enough muscles. For whatever reason, you're just gonna go, where you want to go. And here's the other thing too. There was a study that said about 30% of men had not had any, let's say poon. I'll be safe on YouTube. Any poon within like the last 2 years, about 30%. And I believe they were saying there was a large percent of men that were virgins, and then also large percent of men under 30 that had never had a girlfriend, and that kind of thing. And you have to ask yourself, why is this? It's because you go back to that Stanley study in which they were saying 45% of women in their prime age, they consider prime age 25 to 44, but according to Kevin Samuels, like their prime is pretty much between like 22 and 27. After that, you're starting to get into like the danger zone. And then after 35, you're pretty much, as he would say, you're kind of done. So, but even besides that, they're saying 45 women between that age range of like 25 and 44 are going to be single and childless by the time they are, by 2030, which means what? About half the women you're encountering, they all think they're boss babes and they don't need men. So that should tell you why a lot of men are having a struggle finding a good woman and finding a good wife, because about 50% of women think they deserve better, and they're all holding out for Chad and Brad. That's pretty much what it's telling you, because how can that many women end up single and childless? That doesn't make any sense. You can't blame it on the men, because when they did the Tinder study, it showed about nearly all the men they surveyed, majority of them they liked about 30% of the profiles they saw. When they did the women, they said really it was only about like 4%. They like 4% of the profiles. So you can't say that the men are being overly picky. That tells you what, men, we have a range. We're willing to, we're willing to be more reasonable and more reasonable when we do our dating and so forth. As some men used to say, just give me an 8 and I'm straight. Most men not even really aiming for dimes. They're just saying, if I get a woman who's decent, who's pretty, I'll settle down with her. So it's not the men that has the issue. So that being said, as men are going out looking for wives, you have to ask yourself why they struggling. And it's really because a lot of women with these ridiculous standards. And as a result, that means there's 50% that are like, unfortunately, just going to, pretty much like, just like in musical chairs, end up without a chair. They're just pretty much going to age out, and none of the men, they're not going to be an option for any of the men here in the States. So all we can do at that point, if now 50% of the women pool is not even dateable, all we can do, most of us, is if you in a position to travel, all we can really do is travel and find us a wife. And of those 50%, and those 50%, a lot of those, like, put it this way, if you are like some type of Chad, Brad type of thing, you're probably one of the guys dating, these 50% of women who are just going to age out, just pretty much stringing them along. As Dennis Sperling has showed through a study, I believe they said like 60% of, I think, black men were single and childless. About like another 25% were married, which means if we have a single mother rate of like 80%, most of the women are just sleeping with this last like 15-20% of men. These are kind of like Chad and Brad or Pookie and Ray Ray, and that's really pretty much what they're messing with. But as the study is showing, they're pretty much aging out, and Pookie and Ray Ray and Chad and Brad are not marrying most of these women. So you have a bunch of boss babes with cats, dogs, and wine. So it's only really like 50% that really setting down are actually winning. So that pretty much brings the value of women up in the States, which makes it extremely difficult for men to find like a decent woman to settle down with. Now here's the other thing you need to think about. So that 50% that does settle down and find a man, that does settle down and gets on a man's programming, keep in mind that they didn't mention the attractiveness of these women. So that means this 50% that do even settle down, some of these women are not attractive. As we know, in the States, I believe about 50%, we have like it was about like a 50%, close to 50% obese rate or like overweight rate. Maybe about like, I think 15-20% were like overweight, which means you got about like a third of women who are like actually in shape. So of that 50% that are looking for a husband, you mean that at least half of them are going to be somewhat obese or overweight. So you got that. And again, some of them are not going to be that attractive as well. And then again, as we know, you got a lot of women having all these kids as well. So basically what I'm trying to say is very slim pickings in the States. So men can kind of stay here if they want. Hopefully they get the women who have the 50%, and hopefully of that 50%, those women are somewhat at least cute in shape. And hopefully they don't have any kids. You got a lot of women have kids at a very early age. So when you look at those stats and you see how all that's stacked against you, on top of the fact that a lot of women want to wrestle men and they don't believe in these, roles anymore, it's a no-brainer. I mean, if you really want the best quality, it's a no-brainer. You need to travel, you need to go overseas, you need to go to Thailand, you need to go to the Philippines, you need to go to Nigeria, you need to go to Kenya, where Austin Holloman is. You need to go down to where I like to go in Colombia, or where Skylar likes to go into Brazil. You need to go to Peru, Dominican Republic, Ukraine. Well, when Ukraine gets back, it's going to be popping. I mean, it's going to be a small pool of men there, lots of women there. Ukraine is going to be very big when this whole war gets done. But since you can't go to Ukraine now, Romania, parts of Eastern Europe. You can go to Germany. A lot of black men have a lot of success there. And as you can see in many of my videos, I show lots of receipts of guys who are constantly women. They're getting wives. They're getting girlfriends. They're going on dates. A lot of guys in the States, as I said before, maybe that percentage have never had a girlfriend before. Never had any luck with women. So if you are of those percentage of men, like I said, that was not getting any poon, or you're a man who struggle to find like a girlfriend, and in my opinion, it's not really your fault. I just told you before, 50% of women in general, they're pretty much boss babes. They're not looking for a husband. They think they're better than men. They don't need a man, and they're only looking for Poogie Ray Ray or Chad and Tyrone. That's all they're looking for. If you don't fit that, which most men are not, they're not checking for you. So you already have majority of men competing for this 50% of women, of which all of them are not in shape and all of them are not attractive. So that makes even a woman who's a 5 think she's a 10. Versus if you go over into just pick a country, pick Thailand, pick China, pick Brazil. I mean, it's night and day. I mean, you'll be you put it this way, if you're getting 5s in the States, you're at least getting 7, maybe even 8s at a very least. I say at least, which means some of y'all are getting 8s, 9s, and 10s. If you're a guy who has no luck in the States, you can at least get a woman who's 5'6", who's a 5 or 6 easily. And if you're willing to go to the Philippines, where literally they have TikTok videos where they're looking for passport bros, man, you can have all, there's a lot of beauties there, man. You might even mess around and go from having no women in the States to having 8s and 9s in the Philippines. It's all up to you. But my suggestion to you is, please travel. Don't sit here and listen. Don't be like this plantation bro who wants you to stay here on the plantation, where a lot of the women who have all these kids and all these boss babes who age out when they, like I said, the study said from 25 to 44, when these women hit about 44, suddenly they're looking at you to be their plan B, to clean up, to have you take care of all the kids by Pookie and Ray Ray, Chad and Brad. They want you to come clean and mess up and be a cleanup bro. And I'm telling you, don't do that. Now here's the thing. It's one thing if you choose, that for whatever reason, you meet a girl, she has a daughter or something like that, y'all talk, y'all work, y'all fall in love. Okay, that's fine. But remember, that's something you chose to do. But don't let it be because you're forced to do that, because there's literally no women, you have no choice, and you're like, well, I just might as well settle down with her. Don't let it be because of that. Let it just be because, one, you made a decision. Two, you just happen, maybe, whatever happens, you're going to meet different women while you're working and doing other stuff. You just happen to meet a woman, she seemed pretty cool. Y'all hanging out. You just so happen she had a kid. You're okay with it. That's fine. As long as you're okay with it, don't let society or this plantation bro pressure you into taking care of another kid, unless that's something that you yourself have chosen to do. Because there are, like, I mean, you might here and there there are some cool single mothers you might meet or something like that. Though, as you know, it is always recommended that you will want a woman who has no kids, because one, children are expensive, and when you want to start your own legacy, and then you also have the issue of dealing with her baby father, who might be a Pookie, Ray Ray, or he might be like a difficult Chad or something. You never know what kind of guy you're dealing with. Versus you just start off fresh, you don't even have to deal with that. But to each his own. I'm gonna leave it at that. So I think I said enough. I can go on and on about this topic. I'm sure some of the guys listening, you want to leave some comments about this. Give your response to this plantation bro. What do you think what is your response to him? Let me know in the comment. What do you think he needs to do? What can we do to convince him? Because I mean, if he wants to stand on plantation, he's happy dealing with the women here, more power to him. If he can make them into a wife, more power to him. But me myself, I'm not doing that. I don't recommend you do that either. Passport Bros, we up. Get your passports. To all my Ghost listeners, please subscribe to my channel if you have not. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the notification bell. Please share the video. And until next time, this is the Passport Bro Wingman signing off.
Dear Passport Boys, dear Passport Bros, stop calling yourself Passport Boys and Passport Bros. Are you going to the Philippines to look for a Filipina queen or what? So stop calling yourself Passport Boys and Passport Bros. Start calling yourself Passport Kings.